The fluorescent lights of the courtroom hummed, a dull counterpoint to the frantic thumping of my heart. My hands, clasped tightly in my lap, were slick with sweat. Across from me, my family sat like a tableau of disapproval. My mother, lips pursed, radiating a frosty anger. My father, avoiding my gaze, fiddled with his tie. And my sister, Tiffany, radiating a smug satisfaction that made my stomach churn. How I outsmarted my family's expectations, I thought grimly, the title of my story echoing in my head. Miss Johnson, the judge's voice, amplified by the microphone, cut through the tense silence. Are you ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor, I reply, my voice a little shaky. This was it, the culmination of months of planning, of sweat and tears poured into the little house that changed everything. The $3,600 fixer-upper that had become my sanctuary, my revenge, my dream home. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, a stout man with a reassuringly calm demeanor, stood and addressed the court. Your Honor, this case concerns the contested will of the late Mr. Harold Johnson, father of the plaintiff, Amanda Johnson, and grandfather of the defendants, Tiffany and Michael Miller. He paused, letting his words sink in. My mother shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Tiffany rolled her eyes. I knew what was coming. Mr. Johnson's will, Mr. Henderson continued, clearly stipulates that his estate, including a significant sum of money and several properties, is to be divided equally amongst his grandchildren. Objection. My mother's voice, shrill and sharp, sliced through the air. That will is invalid. Harold wasn't in his right mind when he signed it. Judge Thompson raised a hand. Mrs. Miller, please let counsel continue. You'll have your chance to present your case. My mother subsided, muttering under her breath. Mr. Henderson gave me a small, encouraging nod before continuing. However, he said, his voice gaining strength, a codicil to the will, signed and witnessed just weeks before Mr. Johnson's passing, adds a significant caveat. It states that any grandchild who demonstrates financial independence and responsibility will receive a larger share of the inheritance. A ripple of unease passed through my family. Tiffany's smug smile faltered. My father finally looked at me, his expression a mixture of surprise and was that a flicker of pride. I pushed the thought away. I couldn't afford to be distracted. And Miss Johnson, Mr. Henderson gestured towards me, has done just that. While her cousins lived off their grandfather's generosity, expecting handouts and squandering their opportunities, she worked tirelessly to build a life for herself. She purchased a dilapidated property for a mere $3,600 and, through her own hard work and ingenuity, transformed it into a beautiful and valuable home. From $3,600 fixer-upper to dream home. That's the story here. He presented photographs of the house before and after. The before pictures showed the peeling paint, the overgrown yard, the broken windows. The after pictures showcased the gleaming hardwood floors, the sun-drenched kitchen, the vibrant garden. The contrast was stark, undeniable. This, Mr. Henderson declared, his voice ringing with conviction, is a testament to Miss Johnson's resourcefulness and determination. She embodies the very qualities her grandfather wished to reward. A hush fell over the courtroom. I could feel my family's gazes burning into me. My mother's face was contorted with rage. This is ridiculous, she sputtered. That shack? She bought it for practically nothing. It doesn't prove anything. It proves, Mr. Henderson retorted calmly, that Miss Johnson didn't wait for handouts. She took initiative. She invested in herself. She built something from nothing. And like he paused, letting his gaze sweep over Tiffany and Michael, certain other members of the family, Tiffany sprang to her feet. She's lying. She probably got the money from some sugar daddy. The judge banged his gavel. Order, Miss Miller. You will address the court with respect. Tiffany sat down, fuming. I took a deep breath, trying to ignore the turmoil in my stomach. This was exactly the kind of reaction I'd expected. They couldn't stand the thought of me succeeding, of me proving them wrong. They'd always underestimated me. They'd always treated me like the afterthought, the less than. My $3,600 revenge on my family's neglect, I thought, a bitter satisfaction rising within me. This wasn't just about the money. It was about proving my worth, about finally getting the recognition I deserved. Your Honor, Mr. Henderson addressed the judge. We have further evidence to present that will clearly demonstrate the extent of Miss Johnson's efforts and the value of the property she has cultivated. We request a recess to prepare these materials. The judge nodded, recess granted. We will reconvene in 1 hour. As the gavel banged again, signaling the break, my family surged towards me. My mother's face was inches from mine, her eyes blazing. You think you're so clever, don't you? She hissed. You think you can just waltz in here and steal what's rightfully ours? I earned it, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I worked for it. Something you wouldn't understand. You're a disgrace. She spat. You've betrayed us all. I looked her in the eye, refusing to flinch. Building my own happy ending, I thought, and for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. This was just the beginning. The courtroom air hung thick and heavy, a suffocating blanket of anticipation. From a $3,600 fixer-upper to a dream home, I stated, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. My gaze swept across the faces of my family, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and simmering resentment. My sister, Jessica, in particular, looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. How I outsmarted my family's expectations, I continued, my voice gaining strength with every word. I could feel Julian's supportive presence beside me, a silent anchor in the storm. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, leaned closer. Ready for your testimony, Miss Johnson? I am, I reply, my voice ringing with conviction. Taking a deep breath, I launched into my story. Years of subtle and not so subtle slights flashing before my eyes like a disturbing movie reel. This house, this fight. It was about more than just the property. It was about finally reclaiming my worth. And that's how I found myself back in the summer of my 16th birthday. 16, the age of anticipation, of driver's licenses and first jobs. Of feeling like the world was finally opening up. For Jessica, it was all those things. For me, it was the summer of the forgotten birthday. The day started like any other. I woke up to the usual quiet of our suburban home, the sun streaming through my window. Morning, I mumbled to Jessica as she bustled past my doorway, already dressed and radiating an almost palpable excitement. Morning, she chirped back, not even making eye contact. Mom and Dad are taking me to look at cars. Cars, of course. Jessica was getting a car for her 16th birthday. A brand new, sparkling car. It had been the talk of the family for months. Oh, right, I managed, trying to sound nonchalant. That's great, yeah, it is. She agreed, pausing at the doorway. What are you doing today? The question hung in the air, laced with an almost condescending curiosity. I don't know. I shrug, trying to hide the sting of disappointment. Probably just hang around. The unspoken truth was that I hadn't even been given a happy birthday yet. Not even a card. Jessica's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. Seriously? Don't you have plans? No, I repeated, the word catching in my throat. My birthday plans, the ones I'd carefully hinted at for weeks, a small party with my friends. Maybe a trip to the beach seemed to have vanished into thin air. Ha, she said, a small smirk playing on her lips. Well, have fun with that. And with a final flick of her perfectly highlighted hair, she was gone. The hours that followed were a blur of emptiness. The silence of the house pressed in on me, amplifying the feeling of being overlooked, forgotten. Around noon, the aroma of grilling burgers wafted through the air, a tantalizing reminder of what I was missing. I ventured downstairs, hoping for at least a belated acknowledgement of my birthday. I found my parents in the backyard, fussing over Jessica, who was showing off a set of shiny car keys. A gleaming red convertible sat in the driveway, a giant, obnoxious perch on its hood. It was the exact car she'd been drooling over for months. "Happy birthday, sweetie," my mother exclaimed, showering Jessica with kisses. "We're so proud of you," my father beamed. "You deserve it, kiddo. Straight A's, captain of the cheerleading squad, you're everything a parent could ask for." My heart sank. The carefully constructed wall I'd built around my emotions began to crumble. I stood there awkwardly, feeling like an intruder in my own home. "Oh, hi, Amanda," my mother said, noticing me finally. Her tone was flat, almost dismissive. "Happy birthday." "Thanks," I mumbled, my voice barely above a whisper. "We got you something," my father said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small, crumpled envelope. He handed it to me without making eye contact. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling. Inside was a $20 bill. A single, lonely $20 bill. "We figured you could use some extra cash," my mother said, her voice laced with a hint of impatience. "You know, for things." "Things," I echoed, the word feeling like a sharp slap across the face. "Yeah, you know," my father chimed in. "Like a guy's money. For when you get your license eventually," he chuckled, and my mother joined in. My cheeks burned with shame. I wanted to scream, to shout, to tell them how unfair it was, how much it hurt to be constantly overshadowed by Jessica. But the words caught in my throat. "Thanks," I managed again, my voice barely audible. I turned and fled back inside, the $20 bill clutched tightly in my hand. The smell of grilling burgers, once so enticing, now made my stomach churn. I locked myself in my room. The image of Jessica's gleaming new car seared into my memory. The tears came then, hot and heavy, a torrent of frustration and hurt. That day, more than any other, solidified a growing realization. In my family, I was an afterthought, a footnote in Jessica's perfectly scripted story. And that realization, that bitter seed of resentment, would eventually blossom into something much, much bigger. It was the fuel that ignited my ambition, the driving force behind my desire to build my own success, my own happiness, independent of their approval, their validation, their love. This house, the $3,600 fixer-upper, was the physical manifestation of that independence, a testament to my resilience, my strength. And it was the key to my revenge. Mr. Henderson placed a reassuring hand on my arm. "Take your time, Miss Johnson," he murmured. "We're here for you," I nodded, taking a deep breath to compose myself. This was just the beginning. The stale air of Mrs. Higgins' basement apartment clung to me like a damp towel. Boxes overflowed with chipped mugs and dusty textbooks, remnants of for years crammed into this cramped space. Mel, my roommate, flitted around like a hummingbird, her cheeks flushed, phone glued to her ear. "He said yes," she shrieked, bouncing on the balls of her feet. "He actually said yes." I managed a weak smile. "That's wonderful, Mel. I'm so happy for you." My voice felt thick with unused tears. Mel's engagement was a joyful occasion, of course, but it also meant the end of our shared living arrangement, and the reality of my own precarious housing situation slammed into me with the force of a tidal wave. "Oh, Amanda," Mel said, her voice softening. She pulled me into a hug, her lavender-scented perfume filling my nostrils. Don't look so glum. We'll find you a new place. Something amazing, maybe even better than this dungeon. She winked, but the wink couldn't mask the pity in her eyes. Easy for you to say, I muttered, pulling away. You're moving in with Derek. I'm on my own. Mel's smile faltered. Well, yeah, but she trailed off, fiddling with the diamond ring that now adorned her left hand. Don't worry about it, I said quickly, forcing a brighter tone. I'll figure something out. But as I started packing my meager belongings, a familiar wave of despair washed over me. Finding affordable housing in this city was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Especially on my limited budget. I worked part-time jobs just to make ends meet, and the prospect of finding a decent place to live, let alone one I could afford, felt overwhelming. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, the image of Mel's sparkling ring flashing in my mind. Her joy only amplified my own sense of inadequacy. I wasn't just losing a roommate, I was losing a friend, a confidant, a part of my support system. And in his place, a gaping void of loneliness and uncertainty threatened to swallow me whole. The next day, fueled by caffeine and desperation, I started my apartment hunt. I scoured online listings, called countless landlords, and even ventured into questionable neighborhoods, hoping to find a hidden gem. Each rejection chipped away at my already fragile confidence. Sorry, we're looking for someone with a more stable income. Credit score too low. No pets allowed. My ancient, one-eyed cat, Mr. Whiskers, was my only family, and there was no way I was parting with him. Days turned into weeks, and my hope dwindled. Mel's wedding was fast approaching, and I still hadn't found a place to live. The thought of being homeless, of having nowhere to go, sent shivers down my spine. Then, one dreary afternoon, while scrolling through a seemingly endless list of overpriced apartments, I stumbled upon a listing that seemed too good to be true. A small, detached house in a quiet neighborhood, listed for a mere $3,600. The photos showed a dilapidated structure with peeling paint and overgrown weeds. But something about it sparked my interest. This is it, I whispered, a flicker of hope igniting within me. This little house, as broken as it seemed, represented a chance, a possibility, a way out. I immediately called the number listed and arranged a viewing. The owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Dubois, seemed relieved to find a beer. The house had belonged to her late son, and she was eager to sell it quickly. The inside of the house was even worse than the photos suggested. The walls were covered in grime, the floors were warped, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. But beneath the decay, I saw potential. I envisioned tearing down the crumbling walls, replacing the outdated fixtures, and transforming this neglected space into my own personal haven. I'll take it, I said without hesitation. Mrs. Dubois' eyes widened. Are you sure, dear? It needs a lot of work. I know, I reply, a determined glint in my eyes, but I'm willing to put in the effort. This little house that changed everything. It's my chance to build my own happy ending. The purchase of the house was the first step in a long and arduous journey. My family, of course, was less than thrilled with my decision. Are you crazy? My mother shrieked when I told her the news. Throwing away your money on that dumb. You should have listened to us and gone to law school. Then you wouldn't be in this mess. My father, ever the pragmatist, simply shook his head and muttered something about foolish investments. My sister, ever the golden child, just smirked. Their disapproval stung, but it also fueled my resolve. I was determined to prove them wrong. I would turn this dilapidated house into a dream home, a testament to my resilience and resourcefulness. This wasn't just about a house. It was about proving my worth, about finally claiming my independence. It was my $3,600 revenge on my family's neglect, my way of finally saying, I'm enough. And I knew, deep in my heart, that this was just the beginning of my story. This was how I outsmarted my family's expectations. From $3,600 fixer-upper to dream home, the courtroom air hung thick and stagnant, like a forgotten pot roast left out too long. My throat felt dry, scratchy. I adjusted the collar of my blouse, the silk chafing against my skin. Across the aisle, my family sat huddled together, a fortress of disapproval. My mother, draped in her usual pearls, whispered something to my brother, Mark, who smirked in my direction. Are you ready for this, Sophia? Julian squeezed my hand, his touch a grounding force in the swirling chaos of the room. As I'll ever be, I managed, my voice barely a whisper. The discovery hadn't been dramatic, not in the Hollywood sense. No dusty attic revelations or hidden compartments. It was mundane, almost anticlimactic, but in its ordinariness, it held a power that could rewrite everything. I thought back to the online listing, the grainy photo of the dilapidated house in Millfield, the ludicrously low price of $3,600. My initial reaction, disbelief. It had to be a scam. $3,600 for a whole house. Julian, look at this. I'd scrolled through the limited pictures on my phone, a mix of amusement and skepticism swirling inside me. Looks like a fixer-upper, Julian had commented, peering over my shoulder. But Millfield, that's hours away. Exactly, Bard said. Too good to be true. I remember dismissing it, almost instantly. The house, even if real, seemed too far gone, too much work. I had my life in the city, my career, my plans. Millfield represented a past I'd been trying to escape, a past filled with my family's constant reminders of how I'd failed to meet their expectations. But something nagged at me. A tiny, insistent voice whispered that this could be my chance. My chance to build something of my own. Something completely separate from the suffocating web of family obligations and judgment. This could be my $3,600 revenge on my family's neglect. It wasn't just about the house. It was about proving them wrong, showing them that I could succeed on my own terms, that I didn't need their approval or their handouts. So I drove to Millfield. The house was even worse in person. Peeling paint, broken windows, overgrown weeds reclaiming the yard. It looked like something out of a horror movie. But beneath the decay, I saw potential. A solid foundation, good bones, as they say, and something else, freedom. I'm buying it, I declared to Julian later that evening, a newfound determination hardening my voice. He'd simply smiled and said, I'm with you. All the way, and he was. Through the grueling renovations, the endless trips to hardware stores, the late nights fueled by coffee and takeout, Julian was my rock. He believed in my vision, even when I doubted myself. He saw the dream home I was building, even when it was still hidden beneath layers of dust and debris. My family, of course, scoffed. Throwing your money away on that dump, my mother had said, her voice dripping with disdain. You'll be back begging for help in a month. My brother had just shaken his head, muttering something about foolish investments. Their words stung, but they also fueled my resolve. I would prove them wrong. I would turn this dilapidated house into a dream home, a symbol of my independence and resilience, and I did. With my own hands, with Julian's unwavering support, and with the burning fire of my determination, I transformed the $3,600 fixer-upper into something beautiful, something valuable, something that would ultimately silence my family's criticisms. Back in the courtroom, the lawyer droned on about property rights and inheritance laws. My mind wandered, replaying the years of slights and dismissals. The Christmas when my parents gifted Mark a brand new car. while I received a hand-me-down sweater. The birthday dinner where my family toasted Mark's promotion, completely ignoring my own academic achievements. The countless times their actions screamed louder than any words, "You are not enough." But now, I was enough. I had built my own happy ending, brick by brick, with sweat and determination. And I had something they didn't: proof. "Your Honor," I said, my voice clear and strong, cutting through the lawyer's monotonous recitation. "I'd like to present a piece of evidence." The lawyer paused, looking at me with a mixture of surprise and annoyance. My family shifted in their seats, their expressions a mix of confusion and apprehension. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick folder. It contained the original listing for the house, the deed with my name on it, and a detailed appraisal documenting its current market value. The number on the appraisal was significantly higher than anyone, especially my family, could have imagined. "This," I said, holding up the document for all to see, "is proof that I purchased this property with my own funds." Long before any inheritance was even discussed, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. My mother gasped, her pulse clicking against her chest. Mark's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of stern disbelief. Their faces, once smug and confident, now crumbled into expressions of shock and fear. The judge leaned forward, his eyes scanning the documents. "This is compelling evidence, Ms. Johnson," he said, his voice laced with intrigue. He looked up at my family, his gaze sharp and questioning. I met his gaze, a flicker of triumph igniting within me. The little house that changed everything had done more than just provide me with a home. It had given me the power to rewrite my story, to finally claim my voice, and to show my family, once and for all, that I was more than they ever gave me credit for. This wasn't just about the money, although that was certainly a satisfying bonus. This was about reclaiming my narrative, building my own future, and finally escaping the shadow of their expectations. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. But for the first time, I felt a surge of hope. I had thrown my stone into the still waters of their complacency, and the ripples were just beginning to spread. The gavel slammed down, echoing in the hushed courtroom. Judge Mallory's voice, crisp and authoritative, cut through the silence. "All rise." I rose, my legs trembling slightly, Julian's hand a reassuring presence on my lower back. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the culmination of months of painstaking work, of fighting for what I deserved, of building my own happy ending from the ground up. My family, arrayed across the aisle, looked like a flock of disgruntled crows. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. My father stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched, and my sister, Melissa, glared daggers at me. I met her gaze, a small, steady smile playing on my lips. "In the matter of the estate of Harold Johnson," Judge Mallory announced, her gaze sweeping over the courtroom, "the court has reached a verdict." I could barely breathe. This dilapidated house, my $3,600 fixer-upper, had become the center of a battle that had exposed the deep fissures within my family. It was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of my independence, my resilience, a testament to how I outsmarted my family's expectations. Having reviewed the evidence presented, Judge Mallory continued, adjusting her glasses, including the testimony of the plaintiff, Amanda Johnson, and the defendants, Patricia, Melissa, and Richard Johnson. "The court finds," she paused, letting the tension build. I squeezed Julian's hand, my knuckles white. My mind raced, flashing back to the day I had found the listing online. From $3,600 fixer-upper to dream home. The ad had screamed. It had seemed almost too good to be true. A tiny, neglected house in a quiet corner of town, practically begging for someone to breathe life back into it. I'd been hesitant at first, still reeling from my family's rejection, their insistence that I abandon my dreams of starting my own business to help run the family firm. "It's your duty, Amanda," my father had boomed, his voice filled with disapproval. Family comes first, but I'd had enough. I was tired of being overlooked, of my contributions being dismissed, of always putting my family's needs ahead of my own. I'd craved something that was mine, something I could build and nurture without their interference. The little house that changed everything had given me that chance. The memory of their scornful laughter when I told them about my purchase still stung. A dilapidated shack, Melissa had sneered. What a waste of money. They'd all agreed. They couldn't understand why I would invest in something so seemingly worthless. They saw only the crumbling facade, the overgrown yard, the peeling paint. They couldn't see the potential. The diamond in the rough. The court finds. Judge Mallory's voice snapped me back to the present. In favor of the plaintiff, Amanda Johnson. A wave of relief washed over me. My family gasped, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. Based on the presented evidence, including the recently discovered will of Harold Johnson, the judge continued, the ownership of the property in question, along with the residual estate, rightfully belongs to Amanda Johnson. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. My father sputtered in protest. But the will, it can't be. Order, the bailiff barked. Judge Mallory continued, unfazed. The will, dated just weeks before Mr. Johnson's passing, clearly states his intention to leave the property and the remaining assets to his granddaughter, Amanda. Citing her independent spirit and entrepreneurial drive, he further states his disappointment in his other children's attempts to stifle her ambition and control her future. My eyes welled up. Grandpa Harold, my quiet, unassuming grandfather, had seen me, had understood me in a way my parents never had. He'd seen the fire in me, the drive to create something of my own. He'd believed in me even when my own family hadn't. Furthermore, Judge Mallory continued, the court recognizes the substantial improvements made to the property by Ms. Johnson, transforming it from a dilapidated structure into a valuable asset. She looked directly at me, a hint of a smile on her lips. It's clear that Ms. Johnson's vision and hard work have significantly increased the property's value. My gaze drifted to the documents displayed on the projector screen, photographs documenting the house's transformation. From the initial crumbling exterior to the beautifully renovated interior, every image told a story of my dedication, my sweat, and my tears. Turning a dilapidated house into a dream home had become my mantra, my driving force, and now it was my triumph. The final appraisal values the property at over $500,000. Judge Mallory announced, the figure hanging in the air like a resounding victory cry. My $3,600 revenge on my family's neglect had yielded a return far greater than I could have imagined. Not just in monetary terms, but in the sense of self-worth, of validation, of finally having my voice heard. My family sat stunned, their faces pale. The whispers around the courtroom grew louder. Melissa's face was contorted in a mask of fury. My mother's carefully constructed composure crumbled, and she began to sob openly. My father, his face a thundercloud, stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and was it regret? I allowed myself a small, private smile. This wasn't just about the money or the house. This was about reclaiming my life, about forging my own path, about building my own happy ending, brick by painstaking brick. And I had done it. I had won. Julian squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with pride. I knew you could do it, he whispered. I looked at him, my heart overflowing. He had been my rock throughout this ordeal, my constant source of support and encouragement. He had believed in me even when I doubted myself, and now we could finally move forward together towards the future we had always dreamed of. As the gavel sounded again, signaling the end of the proceedings. I knew that this was just the beginning. I had a life to build, a business to grow, and a future to embrace. And with the little house that changed everything, I had the foundation I needed to make it all happen.